Hey everybody, welcome back again for another Species Spotlight here at the Florida Keys History and Discovery Center. I'm Blake and we're looking at the Mote Marine Laboratory exhibit again. Today we're going to be looking at our favorite friend, the Florida spiny lobster. So our Florida spiny lobster is named Larry. We're going to be feeding him and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the life history of the Florida spiny lobster and some fun facts. So I'm going to go ahead and climb on up. We're going to get to feeding. Larry is our resident Florida spiny lobster. We have had him since this exhibit came into existence. So he has been here and a resident since October of 2018. And just like all of our Species Spotlight videos, we're going to start out with our feeding. We'll get everybody fed. And we are going to feed Larry as well. So Larry gets fed his single thawed out shrimp. And you their habitat is they like to live in protected crevices and caves on the coral reefs, sponge flats, and other hard-bottomed areas in the ocean. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back up here. We're going to see if we can get Larry his shrimp. Here, what I'm gonna do is I just gotta stick it down there, get it in front of him, and he'll just do that. He'll grab it from me. That is all there is to it. Larry gets fed 4 times a week. He gets fed a single thawed out shrimp. Now a lot of people were wondering how old Larry is. And it is a little bit tough to determine the age of lobsters because as they age, they molt less and less. But we can safely estimate that Larry's probably around 4 or 5 years old. So at his age, he is molting twice a year, and we've actually had him molt twice here at our exhibit. And we have a molt here from Larry. So what he does is he'll pull himself out of his carapace right here. And this all happens within the span of 30 minutes to an hour. And it is a hard exoskeleton. It's very tough. But we can see here on his antennae, this is why they call him the spiny lobster. It's kind of like a rose bush where it's got all of these thorns on it. So what he'll do is he'll use these antennae to ward off predators. So he'll wave these at predators to keep them away. That is the sole purpose of them. But these smaller ones we have here, these, I believe they are called antennulas. He'll use these to sense chemicals in the water or movement. And this is what he uses to find his food. So you'll see him when we go back and look at him. He's waving those around, and he's got these two sets here. And he waves those around. That's how he senses the food in the water. But like I said, Larry is molting twice at his age. He's probably around 4 or 5 years old. And lobsters, the Florida spiny lobster, can live up to 15 years or more. But again, like I said, it is tough to estimate the age of the species. There really aren't any determining factors. Now they like to live in those protected areas out on the reefs. And they will stay in their little caves and crevices during the daylight hours. And this is to avoid predators. And then a few hours after dark, they're going to come out and they're going to start foraging for food. And then they'll return several hours before sunrise. So the diet of the Florida spiny lobster, they are opportunists and scavengers. So they're going to eat almost anything. They're going to eat almost anything that they can. That's including their favorite foods such as snails, clams, crabs, urchins, and other invertebrates. Now the predator of the Florida spiny lobster is going to be things such as sharks, rays, turtles, octopuses, grouper, and snapper. So these are going to be the animals that the Florida spiny lobster is going to be waving those antennae at and try and keep them away. Now everybody loves to eat their lobster tail down here in the Florida Keys. And should be no surprise that the Florida spiny lobster is the largest commercial fishery here in Florida. It takes a spiny lobster about 2 years to grow to the 3-inch carapace length legal harvesting size. So our Larry here is well within legal harvesting size, but he is not going anywhere. He is not to eat. So before those lobsters reach their harvesting size, during their juvenile stage, they're going to hang out and congregate in groups in more shallow waters and protected habitats near shore, such as the mangroves or shallow hard-bottomed areas. And once they start to get bigger, they're going to move off into offshore areas along coral reefs, and they're going to live a solitary lifestyle then. So during their juvenile stage, they're going to congregate with other lobsters, and then as they mature, they're going to move offshore, find themselves a nice little crevice on the reef, and hang out there.
We have a question from Chris Clark.
All right, we got a question.
Chris would like to know, we have been calling our lobster Larry, the male version of the name. Do we know that that name actually corresponds to his sex?
So our question was whether we know if Larry actually is a male lobster. And yes, we do know that Larry is a male lobster. So the way we can tell is the very last set of legs that Larry has. On a female, they would have a small set of pinchers, and she uses those to tend to her eggs. We look at Larry, those set of pinchers are absent, so that's how we know that he is a male.
Did Phyllis ask you that before she named him, or it was just a lucky guess that she gave him a male name?
I think that we had discussed when we were naming our lobster. We knew that he was a male and that he needed a male name. And everybody knows the iconic Larry the Lobster from SpongeBob, so it was just a fitting name for him. But Larry is the star. He knew today that he was going to be the star of our species spotlight, so he is front and center of our tank, giving us all the camera moments that we could ask for.
Yeah, I really appreciate him hanging out down here.
All right, he is being very photogenic. So you can see Larry waving those antennulas around. And what he'll do after he's gotten his shrimp is he'll go ahead and go around the aquarium and he'll kind of sift through the sand bed looking for any fish food that hit the bottom. Like I said, he's a scavenger and he's an opportunist. He will eat anything that he can find. So he's good at cleaning up the tank, making sure that the sand bed is clean, and making sure that there's no fish food that's going to break down and be a detriment to the aquarium.
We have another question from Mackenzie. Mackenzie would like to know if he is the only lobster on exhibit in our tank.
So we had another question, whether Larry is our only lobster. We have an exhibit here. Yes, he is. Now, if we wanted to, we could have another lobster in our tank. But what we were going for is we were going for a little bit of diversity. We wanted to give a nice wide spectrum of all the species we have down here in the Florida Keys. So if down the road we wanted to get Larry a buddy to hang out with, another lobster, we definitely could have another lobster here in this tank. But for right now, Larry is the star of the show. He gets all the attention. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for our species spotlight this week. Thank you for tuning in. And then again, I hope everybody's staying safe at home. And we hope to see you guys soon whenever we're ready to open back up. So thank you guys for tuning in. See you next week for another species spotlight.